Welcome to Pain with a Purpose, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of resilience, redemption, and purpose. I'm your host, Chris Woods, and each week we will sit down with guests who have faced challenges with substance abuse, mental health, and recovery. But we're not just dwelling on the past. Instead, we'll explore what keeps them driven towards a purposeful life. Join us as we navigate the journey from pain to a purpose. So with that, welcome back to Pain with a Purpose, season 2, episode 13, I believe.
Dang.
Life has been like super busy, so I just haven't even like really put like even finding people to get on the podcast. Like, and you just continued to like, hey, are we doing it? I'm like, yeah, sorry. But yeah, with Sarah Sabato, Sabato.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making the trip.
Absolutely.
And in the ice and in the snow and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which
Awful.
eventually, you know, as we get through your story, you moved away from, and now you're, you know, frequently seeing the dirty snow here. So
yeah, it's terrible.
I mean, at least like you had a 4-wheel drive car.
Yes. But no coat. I have like the crappiest coat for it.
Did you get like a lot of snow up in North Jersey, Central Jersey?
Asbury Park. So no, not really. They were thinking there was going to be a lot of snow, but there wasn't. Thank God.
What would you rather? Would you rather like have the snow here and then be able to go back where you live, and then instead of like growing up with it?
Yes.
You know, you wake up, it's still here.
Awful, because it's only pretty for like the moment that it snows, and then it's awful.
Yeah, I hit record. Okay. See, like, you know, like you're sitting here like, oh, I don't like public speaking. There's still stuff that I forget, right? I think we're recording. Yeah, we're good.
Don't you always forget the like?
I do. Oh my God. So, if you've listened to this point, we're 13 seconds in, right? Give us a like, follow, subscribe, on Instagram, Pain with a Purpose, at Pain W Purpose on Instagram, YouTube, Pain with a Purpose podcast, Apple and Spotify, Pain with a Purpose podcast. What do you think? It's the first time I ever roll it out in the first like 5 minutes. So
you're welcome.
We'll see. Thank you. But yeah, you've made this trip twice, right?
Twice.
Once with your friend Sam, and now this time. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so like you have a story, right? And like that's essentially why I asked. It's not because like you work in the same space as me, or you know, because like you just like you have a story. And I remember I was like picking your brain when we first walked down here the first time, and I was like, so like what's up with you? And you like alluded to some things, and I was like, oh shit, okay, we're gonna have her come back.
Might want to talk to her.
Yeah. So walk me through, not like through all the stuff that we found out about when we first came down, but we'll get there at some point. Where are you from and like what happened?
I'm originally from North Jersey. Grew up, my whole life there, moved around a lot. My dad passed when I was young, real young. Don't remember him. And we moved around quite a bit, after he passed. And I think we finally got settled in like a small town. Kind of what happened, I mean, with my dad passing, I think there was always this like I wasn't enough kind of feeling. My brother, I have an older brother. He looks like just like my father. My mom is an amazing woman, but like I looked like her. So like he was the person that like you like gravitated towards, my whole family.
Dad was a good looking guy.
Yeah, he's a great looking guy. Okay. I mean, I don't, from pictures.
Yeah.
So like everybody would gravitate towards my brother. I just kind of felt not enough, kind of left out. When I, found my crew of people, they weren't doing the best things, but it was probably the first time that I didn't feel those feelings with that, group. It was an easy way to like escape.
So you're talking about like using the first time, or are you talking about like when you just found like your people?
Nope, using.
Okay.
And that started pretty early for me.
So how early?
I mean, we were huffing like in like 6th grade.
Yeah, I feel like we don't talk about that enough. Like, and I forget about it.
Yeah.
So, and I like don't even really know how I stumbled upon it, but I found out that if I wrapped a t-shirt around an Axe can, right? And I was 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah.
Mom, sorry. She doesn't even know this.
I don't think my mom knows this either. My brother caught me one time.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know I was huffing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would literally, Phoenix.
So terrible.
And literally, I knew that if I held my breath as long as I could, that like eventually I got this unbelievable rush. And Oh my God, you just took me back because I completely forgot about that point in my life.
Yeah, I mean, that started real early for me. So that was like my first like escape, and that was young. So
yeah. Holy shit. So how old were we when we were in 6th grade?
I was 11.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine like the kids now? Like,
no. Oh my God. They're so little.
Wow. Holy shit, I completely forgot about that. All right, so it started bad.
Yeah, started off bad right away.
And that's the thing, right? So like 6th grade, like nobody, even if you had a whole group that you were huffing with, right? It's not like anybody knew that they were making like horrible decisions or like the parents were like, don't hang around little Johnny. Like nobody knew that.
Yeah.
Which kind of like, if we could like literally put like two things side by side, right? Like that original statement with like, I was huffing in 6th grade, right? To like all the people that are out there on social media that are like, addiction is a choice, this, that, and the third. And it's like, is it though?
I had no idea.
Like you're going to tell me an 11-year-old 6th grader knew right and wrong in that sense that like they shouldn't be doing that?
Right.
Like, yes, like it's abnormal, but it's not like they consciously or you consciously or I consciously knew that I was about to like go, like I had addiction and I just needed to choose to not do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely had no idea, but it set a path because it was like the comfort. I didn't feel the way that I had always kind of felt like the forgotten child or the forgotten I didn't feel enough truly my entire life. So, that group of friends, like kind of stuck with them. I have one friend who's been with me my whole life. She's been down for the ride for all of it. She didn't take the exact path I did, bless her soul. But, yeah, with those friends, I mean, it just got ugly quick through high school.
So once you got to high school, right? Unless that was your drug of choice, but like, what was your...
More was my drug of choice. So it was literally everything. But I think if you were to put like a platter in front of me, I was definitely grabbing the opiates first. But my group of friends were already, they were older. We hung out with the older people. They were already doing heroin. So it wasn't like I didn't do the pills or anything like that. It jumped very quickly.
Really?
Yes. Very quickly.
And was it like very noticeable early on, like to your mom, and like, did they like something was up, or did you hide it or what?
So my lovely friends ratted on me. I had 2 friends. They were great. They cared. Yeah. Yep. They brought it to my mom's attention. I don't think my mom knew quite to the extent of what things were at that point. I remember, I guess it had lasted a little while at that point, but, kind of moving me I went to my aunt's house to kind of hide out at my aunt's house to kind of get my stuff together for a little while. And then I came back because those things, geographical change, come back to the same situations. And I came back, not really knowing anything at that point. And those same group of friends who were ratting on me at that point, now we're all in the same boat with me.
So again, addiction being a choice, right? Because like those same friends that, wanted the best for their friend that was kind of like burning their life to the ground, right? Like you would think that they would never make a decision like that or never do that. Mm-hmm. And like, are we born with it? Or is it the people we're hanging out with? Is it more, like our community? Who knows, right? Who knows? Like the thing is like, I finally actually got better when I stopped trying to figure it out. It's like, I have it. Yeah. It is what it is. Yep. So I assume it got worse from there, right? Because we're still in high school at this point.
Well, so I mean, it had gone a little like quick, but, towards the end of high school is really when, like, it was the end of high school that my mom really started to figure things out. My God, I put that woman through hell. Sorry, Mom. Right after I graduated, I would say 2 months as I was in my first treatment center. Yeah. 3 months. 3 months after.
I mean, I literally had the same story. And like my mom knew that there was something going on, but she didn't know to like what extent.
Yeah. I think my mom's dealt with addiction with other people. I think it was just harder to accept. Or I asked her one time, what was like the most painful thing she'd ever gone through. And it wasn't losing my dad. It wasn't, bad marriage. She had gotten married afterwards to my stepdad, who was not great. My first stepdad. It was watching me. Mm-hmm. And like that, like, oh, my poor mother.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that, like, and I only say this from my own personal experience, but have you noticed that, like, I've like aged my mom so much?
Yes, I think, but also my mom takes care of everyone around. My mom's the youngest of 8 of her siblings. My dad had 5 brothers and sisters. And when I look at her, she's in her 60s, but she just seems young and full of life
She's
to
still
me.
going, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild, like what we put our families through.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like we never wanted to like do that to them and whatnot. Have you noticed that? Like I said before, like I had like 10 years, right? Which is great. I never thought I'd get sober. I got sober at some point. But like it's still there from my mom, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's very much like still a thing where like she'll never say it.
Of
Maybe
course.
she will, but she's like, she probably still worries
Absolutely.
to this day.
I mean,
know?
parents worry about their kids anyway. I'm sure,
Mhm.
you know.
She texts me when it's raining.
Right.
Like, be
yeah.
careful driving. I'm like, thanks, Mom. 4-wheel drive. Thanks.
But it's, yeah, I mean, my mom, I think, will always be kind of, I mean, I traumatized that woman. And she is very, like, she just sees me get out of my routine to this day. And she'll be like, hey, just so you're not going to the gym as much. Is everything okay? Are you okay? I mean, you're not hanging out with your friends as much, because I have a really solid group of people around me. And if I'm like isolating too much, she's always the first one. Hey, is everything all right? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it's a good point as far as like your support network. So I assume you're talking about when you're in Florida.
Yes.
Right. So yeah. I know that you travel a lot for work or often.
Mm-hmm.
Do you travel to other places other than Jersey, or is it just Jersey?
Just come up to Jersey.
So when you're in Jersey, like what's your support network look like when you're up here? Mostly work people or?
Yeah, mostly work. I mean, yeah, and my family, because I do get to see my family when I'm up here. But the great thing about those, my work supports, I worked with them in Florida. They saw, so I did get sober for a time. I had 2.5 years when I finally did get sober, because it took a long time after I moved to Florida to actually get sober. But when I did finally get sober the first time, 2.5 years, I was working for the same company. And then they saw me decline while I was with them.
Yeah.
I left working with them, and last December, my boss had reached out to me. He'd started, reaching out, seeing how my journey had gone since I've been back, and really wanted me to come back and work for him. And those relationships that I have from the first time coming back, I mean, they know me in and out too, and they're phenomenal supports, phenomenal women. Even my boss, I mean, I was up here for the first time with one of my other coworkers, and we were out, kind of, gallivanting around Asbury, and I got back, and he said to me, you better have been behaving while you were, they all know me.
Yeah.
Aside from, I work in treatment, so.
But it's like a family.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. And it's huge, right? Like I know that like our employment is not our recovery, right? But like outside of like our day-to-day function, right? Like I do think that a lot of my coworkers, a lot of the people that like I've met in our space essentially, right, are a part of that support network, which is huge.
Absolutely.
So that's cool that you have that like anywhere you go essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. Super grateful.
So not to like, cause I know that we're going to continue to be all over the place, right? But like, so talk about like when you had 2.5 years, right?
Yeah.
What led up before you got that 2.5 years? Like, what did that look like? Because you said you went through, much like myself, I just didn't go to Florida. Like it was like every 3 to 6 months, I was just going to treatment. And like, we call it an oil change now, but like sometimes I was motivated, sometimes I wasn't, sometimes I would AMA, sometimes I was the president, you know, so it was like, and there's no rhyme or reason, right? Like everybody was like, we talk about success rates and what works and what doesn't, like what doesn't work. I don't really know. All right. I do know that like a strong support network of like men and like strong sober living played a huge part in my life. But like if I would have went the first time, like I probably would have been kicked out because I wasn't about shit.
Yeah.
So what did it look like before you got that 2.5?
I was in and out of treatment centers. Sometimes I would make it like 8 months, just white knuckling it, 4 months here and there, but like mostly in and out of, I had insurance. I had good insurance. And so anywhere would really take me at any point, anytime I needed.
Yeah.
There was a point when I was first in Florida that like the flop houses were bigger down there. So like I met somebody in treatment, and I was kind of like that. That was my running buddy who became like, my boyfriend for quite some time. We ended up in flop houses, places that let us get high.
Places that you could live together. Like male
couples.
and female?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, it was terrible. Oh my God. It's so funny to like hear like when people are like, oh, I want to be, and I'm like, I lived it. Like, you don't want to. I promise you, you don't.
That's
it is
so horrible. Yeah. Especially living with other couples that are probably doing the same thing.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's probably vicious.
It was disgusting. It was terrible. The living situation, the other people, oh God, it was terrible.
And they don't exist really much anymore.
No. I mean, so they're like, you can still find treatment centers that will take couples, but not together.
Well, I think that, well, that's a little different too, right? Because like, why discriminate? And we all know that, like, you know, if I can find somebody that's like, water seeks its own level, right? So if I'm using, right, whether it's male, female, whatever, like, there was definitely times where I could have like entered into treatment with like my boy, right? But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a little different. Yeah. Even if like we're separated by like a couple floors, it would be huge. Yeah. You know? Yep. I can't imagine waking up and being like, and this guy's like, I got one over here. Like, we can figure out, you know, like that would be horrible. Yeah. It was not fun at the time. Like, how great is this, you know? But no, it was awful. Him and I, we ran around together for a little while. And then we kind of started to do like a little bit better together. I ended up pregnant, and we moved back up here, but without any real motivation to work any kind of program. Him being my only source of, you know, support around me outside of my family, because my mom, incredible woman. You know, she's always supported me. If I'm ever presenting like I'm trying, and that woman believes in me so wholeheartedly, it's insane, because there was a time that she should never have believed in me, but she did, and she would support me. But outside of him, you know, without any of that support, without any motivation to do anything, you know, doesn't matter if you have kids, it doesn't matter for who or for what, without some form of, you know, relief from the spiritual aspect, the malady that I have, you're doomed to relapse. Yeah. And we did. Couldn't stay sober for my son. I blessed. He was born very healthy, and he has a great life. But I just knew at that age, I was young. I mean, and it wasn't without trying. I didn't want to give, like, I'm sure. I was fighting it for quite some time. There was like a year where like he's with, you know, his grandparents, and his grandparents have adopted him. But there was a year where I was battling it because I did not want to have to admit defeat in that. I felt like a failure as a woman for a long time. And then after that, because of that guilt and that shame, you know, ultimately I made the decision I wasn't going to fight them on it anymore. And I'm grateful. He has the best life. You know, I get to see him and all the things that he's involved in. I get to, you know, still talk to him. I'm so grateful for what they're able to provide for him that I couldn't at that time. And yeah, with all that guilt and shame, I lied about it for a long time. I didn't tell anybody the truth about what was going on when I was pregnant after I, you know, gave birth. And that kept me sick for a really long time. So back to the South Florida, in and out shuffle. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine, right? Because like, you know, we hear that cliche saying like secrets keep you sick, but the truth of the matter is that like pride and ego is like we operate on it. Even like 3 years, 10 years sober, like we absolutely to this day still operate on it. And like anybody that says that they don't, like, you know, more power to you. But like realistically, like I wake up in my baseline every single day, right? That's tough. Yeah. That's really tough. Yeah, it was hard. And the pride and ego, absolutely. After I finally did put that 2.5 years together, when I you know, went back out and came back, the first thing my sponsor did was like have me call people to admit that what I had happened, because that ego, that pride of everything that I'd put together and then given it away. Oh my God, I would have stayed out so much longer if she had not made me pick up the phone and admit it to people. It's my biggest fear, right? Like, God forbid going out with time. And it wasn't even crazy amount of time, but it was at that point, 2.5 years was a big deal for me. 2.5 years, any given time is a big deal. Yeah. I mean, think about when you got sober, anytime, right? Like 30 days was huge, right? A day was huge. 2.5 years, you're like, you know, I went out with 10 months at one point, and I was like, well, this is it. I'm never doing it again. Now, you know, like I literally need to be stopped. Yeah. I don't come like right back into like forget the rooms, right? Like even just like any type of conversation, like, hey, I need to get help again. It's like, no, like I'm okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I'm dying inside left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm not withdrawing yet, like I'm dying.
Yes.
That's really tough.
Yeah.
So, okay. So thank God for good sponsorship. Right?
Yeah. And mostly friends. My sober network down there is insane. So really what happened to get me to the 2.5 years, I had a cousin who also struggled with addiction. And he was down in Florida as well. He got me into a facility. This facility is where I met a lot of the connections that I have today. And thank God for that. I was in and out for a while, but truly when push came to shove, he had got me. I was like, after I had 13 overdoses, it was my 13th overdose and a heart attack. Wait.
How old were you there?
I was 26 at the time. Yeah. And on my way out of losing my health insurance.
Yeah.
But I had the heart attack before I had my 13th overdose. That heart attack didn't even stop anything. I went back out and I overdosed again. My mom came to the center that I was at. My friend had got me into detox. I was at the center. My mom came to try to convince me to go to treatment, and I'm not going. I've done this 100 times. There is no shot. She sat with me for 2 hours, and finally I refused to go. I was going to go back to the streets. I had been homeless before. I was fine. I'd go back to the streets. She hugged me in this way that I have never been hugged by her before. And she had said to me, I'm just saying, I know I'm never going to see you again. And got in her car and left. And I don't know why that just like, I guess I'll go to treatment, whatever. So I went back to that place that my cousin had gotten me involved in a couple years before. And I got Marchman acted while I was there. Marchman acted in Florida is a court-ordered, court-mandated treatment. You're not allowed to leave.
I didn't know that you could do that.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I got Marchman acted while I was there. And it was honestly a blessing because the day of my court hearing, I was in this facility the day of my court hearing. My mom had came to Marchman act me. So I was out to lunch with my mom. My therapist had gone with me. I thought she was going to be there to like benefit me. The truth was she just knew too much about my treatment, my substance abuse. And I got my full 90-day Marchman Act because she
Wow.
spoke to the judge.
That's like super needed up here.
Yeah, it's valuable if it's done correctly. It can be not done correctly, and there's like some misinformation about it that makes it a little bit tough because it's not. It's way too complicated for this, but if it's done correctly, it's super beneficial. And for me, that day, I was out to lunch with my mom, and I got a phone call from one of my really close friends. Thank God for this group of people, but. My cousin who had gotten me into treatment, he had been friends with the owners. He had gone through that facility as well. Everybody knew him. He had a 1.5 years sober before that. I guess he had relapsed at some point that I wasn't aware of because I was out doing my own thing.
Mm.
And they found him dead that day.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I only say that because...
And this is the day of the...
The day of the Marchman Act, where I was like 90 days to treatment court.
Wow.
Like, you have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I only bring that up because everybody in my life at that point I was going to die. They knew I was going to die. My mom, my brother, all of my friends that I had made over the years, they knew I was a mess. They knew I was a disaster. And yet I stayed, not because of the Marchman Act, because I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I get in trouble. I don't care. But they showed support. They showed up for me. Those friends came to see me while I was in treatment. They just rallied around me, and I stayed sober after that. I got a sponsor. She did not want to be my sponsor, not the same sponsor as right now, because again, there was the relapse in between. But she didn't want to be my sponsor. She went to somebody who worked, because she had worked at the facility, so they had thought that there was like a conflict of interest. Yeah. But I went to her. She went to somebody. Matamato, Matamato. Mm-hmm. She went to Matamato, and he had said, yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. She was like, fuck, mm-hmm. I got to sponsor her. And I did the work with her, and she brought me through the work, and I stayed sober against everybody's like judgment of me, against my own judgment of myself.
I was just going to say, despite yourself.
Yeah, I stayed sober, and it was always just about doing that work, finding my...
So did you do the work previously? Like, I'm sure that you probably like
1, 2, 3 shuffle.
I'm sure you like sat in front of somebody and like shook your head, right? But this is the first time that you actually
First
did the
time
work.
I actually did the work. I remember she gave me 2 weeks to do my 4th step. I sat down and I did it in 3 days. I did nothing but work on it. It was just, it was important to me. I went to halfway. I didn't stay long.
Halfway's recovery house?
Yeah, recovery houses. I did that. I didn't stay as long. It was like a 6-month commitment at the time. I, for some reason, always shortened that for myself. I made things way harder on myself than I had to. I always seem to do that, make it way more difficult than it needs to be instead of just listening to everybody else who came before me. But yeah, I had a really good group of people around me. I had a spiritual experience. I had found, my higher power. And I started sponsoring girls, and I didn't think I had anything to like really give back to that, but I didn't notice anything different about myself until I was able to share with other women. And that was it for me. That was like,
it's the best game in town.
Yeah.
So I feel like, not to go on like a whole tangent of like what my opinions are and aren't in the rooms, right? But like, that's the whole name of the game. Like think about, maybe not now because you're HR, right? But like think about like any job that you had in the past, right? And this is how I explain it to people. It's like, remember when you were getting trained on that job and like you were trying your best to absorb whatever you could, and you were like, yep. And you had no clue what they were talking about, but essentially you're still shaking your head and like engaged and trying to like not get fired on your first day.
Yep.
And it takes weeks and months for you to like figure it out, right? But essentially, remember the first time you had somebody that you had to train on the job, right? And for some reason, now you knew it like the back of your hand. It's literally the same thing, right? Easier said than done, but that's literally the whole thing. And then when you get to see the light come on in somebody's eyes, there's no better experience to be had. So I mean, we could do a whole episode on that. But that's really like what changed my life.
Same.
And there's like multiple people out there, and it's like, I'm not God, right? Like, you're not God. I have my own conception of God. I don't take credit for anybody like staying sober, but
it changed me.
People ask all the time, right? And especially people when like I tell them that like I went through the 12 steps and like it was either 60 or 90 days, right? I don't know what it was. And like there's always going to be people out there that are like, oh, microwave recovery. It's like, cool. I've been sober for a good bit now, and it's pretty awesome. I have a full life, but I started sponsoring people like right around that time as well. Not because I thought that I could be a sponsor. It was because people were like, go put your hand up, say that you're willing to sponsor somebody. And then people started to come up because they were like, their ass was on fire and they just wanted help. I've had a lot of people relapse. I've had a lot of people never call me again after 1, 2, and 3. Right. And people, I say all that to say like, people always ask like, well, how many of your sponsees, have stayed sober? It's like one. I have one, right? That like has, he's right behind me. I think he's at 9 years. Everybody else, whatever the case may be. But the truth of the matter is that my success rate's 100%.
Right.
Right. And like, again, it's the whole name of the game.
That's the point.
All right. So again, my success rate's 100% once I started taking the suggestions. Despite myself. To this day, I don't like them.
No.
To this day, I don't like to answer the phone when somebody, I'm like, it's fucking you know? And I'll be the first one to say it, right? Like, God forbid anybody's watching. They're like, oh, it was never, I'll be the first one to say it. You're not telling or commenting or anything that I don't already know. I'm a selfish individual, by nature.
Yeah, I was going to say by nature.
But that's awesome. Yeah. So it's been what, 3.5?
Well, 3 years, but after that, I had relapsed. That was that time that I relapsed. I had gotten away from sponsoring, being involved. I had a bunch of deaths like back to back to back. My son's father got killed down in Florida.
Wait, so it wasn't an overdose?
No. Which is wild because we weren't together at the time, as I mentioned before. But he had finally come back around. I was like, with him in my 2.5 years that I had put together, he was always in and out. And I had like, kind of like other people had done for me, just knew that was going to be how I would, I would lose him one day and, came to grips with that.
Figured overdose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was sober. He was back in halfway or sober living at the time. 2 months, finally doing the work. My God, he was chairing a meeting it was a Monday night, chairing a meeting, left. I woke up the next morning, I had a missed call from him, and then a random message from, I guess, who his sponsor was at the same time at like 2:00 in the morning on Facebook, trying to reach out to me. And I messaged him back early that morning. And when he finally answered me, he called me very quickly and let me know he'd been hit by a car after leaving the meeting.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So he was walking?
Yeah, he was walking across the street. His sponsor, I guess, had dropped him off at a 7-Eleven to buy a pack of cigarettes. The sober living was right across the street. Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and for some reason, all of those things happened, like my cousin passing. I had one of my best friends die the year later, right around the same time as when my cousin passed, just a year later. My son's father, a good friend I had been on the run with for a long time. Both my grandparents passed and my godmother, all in that year. It was just mayhem for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to help anybody. I didn't want to reach out. My friends had all rallied around me to be there to support me, but they kept telling me to go back to AA. I was getting resentful at them for telling me that I was disconnected from AA because I was going through this hard grief. Don't you understand? And truly, they were right. Like, I needed to be not so focused on me. I needed to be focused on other people to pull myself out of it. And I wouldn't listen. Stubborn, you know.
Again, pride and ego.
Yeah. Yep. And one thing led to another. I broke my foot and was stuck. And ended up on a 6-month little run. Yeah.
So they gave you, what did they give you a prescription?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I forget the saying, but it's like, when opportunity meets whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, what a better recipe, right?
Yep.
We talk about like cunning, baffling, and powerful, but it's realistically like none of that was like, like the fuse was lit.
Yeah.
Right. Much like at, almost 3 years, today for me, like if I operate on self for long enough, right? Like the fuse is lit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter of like what's going to happen. It's like history tends to repeat itself. And I know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So they gave you the script.
Mm-hmm.
And then all bets were off for like 6 months.
All bets were off. Yeah. For about 6 months. It wasn't like before though, I was very quiet about it. I mean, everybody knew around me because I have such good relationships. They've seen me in the, ugly before. I maintained, my job. Not that they were aware, but they just couldn't get rid of me. They couldn't prove it. When they finally could, it was like, okay.
Were you HR at the time?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was going to say.
No.
Kind of tough to get rid of HR if HR is the one that's got the issue.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And then honestly, losing that job was the best thing because I couldn't pay my bills off of that job. I was able to get unemployment when I came back, but I had friends who, after they heard that I had lost my job, it was like time. They showed up at my house to drop off Narcan because they knew they weren't going to be able to convince me to do anything that I didn't want to do. And I was just like, I don't want to do this, help me. And they were able to help me. And I have become such good friends with my original sponsor at that time that it wasn't right to continue with a sponsorship relationship.
Yeah.
We were too close. Still one of my best friends to this day. But I found, I went, I did what I had to do, found a new sponsor, and she became more like a life coach at the time, something that I really needed. She made me do things by myself. She had known that like I'd gone through the steps already, so it wasn't like redoing this in-depth step work. I was super knowledgeable about it. Was, finding my relationship with God and how to rely on that a lot better than I had the first time, how to believe in myself, and finding a healthy way to like manage my emotions that I was dealing with through the grief.
Yeah.
And she, like I said, like a life coach, she told me I had to get a therapist, go to the gym, and do things by myself in order for her to sponsor me. And she made me pick up the phone and make those phone calls and admit to everybody, even though I was trying to be in hiding, even though it wasn't in hiding because everybody knew. I admitted that I had relapsed and I was coming back, and we jumped into, I was blessed because I was able to be on unemployment at the time. Jumped headfirst into my step work, and I was doing nothing but focusing on my step work. Got myself a job again and got back on my feet very quickly. The point was to get back to sponsoring women, because that was my relationship with God and sponsoring women, giving back.
I mean, it goes hand in hand, right? Like if we're sponsoring, in your case, women, right? But if I'm sponsoring men, right? I've never felt closer to God.
Yeah.
Right, because like you were talking about like your support network and like them trying to pull you out of it and like trying to, before you picked up, right? Like turn your attention to somebody else. Like our problems don't go away, but if I can focus a little bit more on you, right? Like my problems seem to get a little bit smaller, and I tend to like get through my day a little bit easier. But we hear all the time, right? And people can have their own opinion on it, but it's like it's a selfish program, and it's really not, right? It's literally a program built on like the idea of being selfless,
right?
Right, but like I could go on a whole tangent about that because it's, you know, whatever. All right, so you got back to sponsoring women, right? You rebuilt your life. You woke up one day, you're almost 3 years sober.
Pretty
much. What does life look like today? Because you travel a good bit.
Yeah,
right?
Life's a little complicated today. I'm
sure.
tired.
We all are. Yeah. Well, actually, wait, backtrack a second, right? So you said that you're new at the time, your new sponsor. That became like a life coach, right? Said you had to do like 3 different things, right? Like obviously, you know, get back to like working with women, gym, and then what was the other one?
Therapy.
So like, were you in the gym beforehand?
I had started, so I had just started my like fitness journey with a friend of mine who, similar to Samantha, she had talked about how she was like too embarrassed to go. We had reached out to Samantha to point us in the direction of that trainer that she had worked with to get us started. Yeah, I had broke my foot and wasn't able to continue.
Okay.
And I went back to him when I came back.
Do you still to this day like think that the gym plays like a huge part?
Huge. That's like, I don't feel right if I'm not like involved regularly in the gym, and that's part of my routine.
Yeah. So I think there was a point in Sam's episode where I asked, but I don't know if it's the same thing for you. I don't know if she wakes up super early, right? Like something crazy.
I was doing that. I found a little bit more balance. It's not, I don't wake up at 4 like she was, but I was getting up at 6 a.m. and going right to the gym before work.
So, but like as much as like the gym plays a huge part in my life, like I still struggle to get there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like we talk about that like often enough, or if it's just me.
No, it's not just you.
But like people have made comments, right? And like, sure, it feels great at the time, but like people still don't understand it. Like it's not just like I still struggle to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like it's a huge,
yeah, it's a love-hate relationship.
Once I'm there, much like an AA meeting or any type of meeting, really, I always feel better when I leave, but I still like would rather be on the couch. I don't want to get off the couch.
No.
Yeah, but I think they never stressed it enough when I was in treatment, right? Where they were like, yo, like mind, body, spirit is like a very real thing.
It really is a very real thing. If I don't wish, because I'm very grateful for where I am today and who I am today. And, you know, I'm complete, you know, from first time sober, like truly sober to today, like I'm so proud of the woman I am today. And I know that I wouldn't be here without all of that. But like, if I had been able to incorporate mind, body, spirit years ago, oh my God. I think that if I had realized it, if I had recognized it, if I had put the self-discipline and the effort into it, then my God, I would love to know where that would have taken.
Well, I mean, we'll never know. I mean, listen, like you said, like everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Hindsight's 20/20. But it was very much like, you know, like get a group of solid guys around you, get a home group, get a sponsor, work the 12 steps.
But take care of your body too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, again, like my diet's horrible.
Yeah.
So like eventually I'm going to get there, but, you know,
it's a journey.
What a time to say like progress over perfection, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that is great, right? Like not like in like a 12-step fellowship where we're like, oh, take it easy, progress over perfection. It's like, no, dude, I'm dying inside. But yeah, the gym is huge.
Yeah. Big part of my life.
Now, do you do like a lot of cardio too, or is it mostly just weight training?
Mostly weight
Because
training.
I'm seeing this whole wave of people that are like only doing cardio.
No.
Like, is that big in Florida right now? Like everybody's running.
Maybe. I don't notice it, to be
Yeah.
honest. It could be. I don't, because I focus so much on strength training and weightlifting. I was doing HIIT for a while, so that was like some of the cardio was, the fast paced tempo of it. But I've always been more into the, strength training aspect of it. I'm sure cardio, I mean, everybody talks about cardio. The truth is cardio strengthens your heart. It's great, but it's really for your heart. It's not really about your muscle and all of that.
No, I mean, I try, like the last time I jogged, like, if my cardio consists of like 15 minutes walking on an incline and before 15 minutes after the workout.
Yeah.
That's it.
Cool down.
But yeah, I definitely wanted to make that a point because I think the gym is like a huge part of it.
I
think
do
that
too.
like it literally should be incorporated in, if we're really talking about it outside of like what our experience is, I really think it should be incorporated in everybody's treatment plan.
Yeah, I do too.
Really do.
Move your body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stupid cliches, move your body, change your thought. No, I mean, really move your body, take care of your body. The way that you feel internally, it just, there's no, I mean, and again, it's a hard thing to keep
and
up.
Externally.
Yes.
Right? You want to talk about like seeking relief, right? Like go do a hard workout.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you will feel something afterwards.
Yep, absolutely.
I just did my first cold plunge yesterday.
Bless your soul.
Luckily, like the people that I was with, I went with a few of my boys, right, that are also sober, but also one's a roofer, two other people working like similar spaces like ourselves, and we jumped into this cold plunge, but it was like a bigger one, right? So it was, and they were like, "Oh, it's not even working today." I'm like, "What? Not even working?" But I had to like act like it was nothing, right? So
Of course,
turns out the water was like 50 degrees. You know what I mean? Yeah. Still sucks.
Yeah.
But even at 50 degrees, like when you get out of that water, like there's absolutely an effect produced by like, like my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so cold plunging is, more power to you, probably won't do it all the time. But yeah, so what does life look like today?
So, I think I'm a little bit more boring these days, which I'm totally okay with. I lived enough craziness, throughout my 20s, but, I travel for work. I'm up here. I get to be, I get to show up for my friends and my family. I'm active in the gym. I like to read a good book. I like to go out and, eat with my friends, game nights. I live for game nights with my friends.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we do game nights. It's hardcore when you bring in Mario Party with my group of girls. We will end friendships over it.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I got twin 7-year-olds and they got Mario Kart up there. So
best of luck to you.
Yeah, literally they were out there for hours.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, game nights. That's a new one. I haven't heard that.
Love game nights. It's big with I don't know what. I don't know.
So are you guys considered like the like the nerds of the? They're like
maybe potentially.
Like when a new girl walks in and they're like they go under like this other like old timers when they're like, well, if you like games, go over there.
Probably.
But hey, whatever works for you.
Yeah, we have a solid
cool.
group,
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful, like the people that I met years ago who stuck with me through all of it, that they chose to stick with me because there was no reason that they should have, latched on to me the way that they did.
Yeah.
They don't hang out with people who was doing what I was doing. So for them to see something more in me that I didn't see in myself at the time, I am so beyond.
Now, would
blessed.
you say it's like, if you're thinking about like your group of girls that are in Florida, right? Like, is it all the majority of like all the same time sober? Like, obviously you have a little bit less time, but is it really all over the place, right? Because like when I think about it with my group of guys, right? And I think about like the newcomer, I would only think that it would be a little intimidating to like try to like even put myself out there and be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, can I hang out? Like nobody says that, right? But it's like, do you guys like welcome? Like, I'm sure you would, right? But by all means, like, you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, I think, so I would say some of my friends are pretty close in their timelines. We also have friends that, like, I have one of my closest friends who's not really in recovery, which is also, she's close with us too. She knows about.
Like they were at one point and not now, but like still living a beautiful life. Yeah.
Beautiful, full life. And I would say all of my friends, because I have a couple different like groups, but like all of them are kind of in different ranges, very open to new people, I mean, we have a close group, so it's hard to like penetrate into that because we're so close knit, but always willing to, you know, lend a hand wherever needed, at any point.
Yeah. No, I mean, so like the point I was like getting at is like
it's scary.
Do you see the new groups of people like forming, right? And coming up and staying together, right? Because like when we got sober, right? Or like when you got sober, when I got sober, like the people that are in my group are the people that have been with me for a number of years.
Yeah.
Some have gone out, come back. Few of my boys have, you know, passed away. Few of my boys are like, they drink, they do whatever they want, right? But they're not burning their life to the ground. So who am I to say like, probably shouldn't be doing like,
yeah,
dude,
I know.
rock out.
Yeah, do,
you know what I mean?
Do
like,
your thing.
I tried. Like I can't.
Can't do it.
But if you're able to, more power to you.
Yeah.
Like we're grown ass men at this point. So it's like, if you want to like rock out after your hard day and have a couple beers, dude, go ahead. I'm not here to like say how you should live by any means. I thought I was supposed to be like that guy for a long time because of like just how I got sober. Turns out like I actually find more pain when I try to do that. So yeah, that's all I was getting at is that like, I'm hoping that those groups are still forming.
I do see that. I mean, I like I had told you before, I work for my friend's sober living, and I get to see like those relationships form in like early on in the houses. It's incredible. I mean, they have such a solid group of women too. And then like the people that have moved on and that they still all keep in touch with them after girls have gone on. It is really beautiful to see.
Yeah. So what else? I feel like I don't even know why it's not telling the time, but I feel like we've been talking for a good bit. I mean, in closing, right? Like, how have you turned your pain into the purpose, right? Like, that's the main question that I always ask. You know, so I know that this is like your first podcast, right?
Yes.
So welcome.
Thanks.
Maybe this is like the first of many, who knows? But like, I assume that everybody in your life knows that you're pretty much like an open book, right? Like everybody knows your story for the most part. You're more than willing to help out any woman that would come up. But like outside of that, like how have you turned like your pain into a purpose?
I think ultimately, outside of recovery in all aspects, I want to, and I think I, you know, emulate that. It doesn't matter your circumstances. I want to be a woman of example that you can come out the other side. Depression, mental health, you know, struggles with your children, work, whatever it is that, you know, you can come to the other side. And that is my purpose, truly, is to just be that light, that example, that no matter the circumstance, no matter what it is that you're going through, that you can come out the other side and life is beautiful. Life is worth living. Because I didn't think so for a long time.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. So if somebody was listening, right, and they were the Sarah before you even got to 2.5 years, right? Like, what would you say, right? Because that's a huge point as far as like, before I got sober, I never thought any of this was possible. Like, what would you say to that person? Like, how would you get them through the other side? Or what would your suggestion to them be, right? As much as you might not want to get sober, like, yo, just what would you say to them?
I would tell them to hang on. I would give them, you know, the darkest parts of my story that, and show them kind of where my life is beautiful today. Reach out my hand, help them through it, sit with them in it, understand, you know, that pain that people are going through is, I mean, I see so many sad things with so many, you know, treatment industry is a tough industry to be in. And I've sat with girls who've talked about their stories and stuff like that, and just listening, just being an ear, just caring enough to check in on them and say how things are doing, you know, showing them that somebody cares about you, you know, somebody believes in, because that was the thing for me. Somebody believed in me. I mean, the whole crew of people believed in me when they shouldn't have. My mom believed in me, sure. I don't know why, right? Because she's my mother, probably.
Unconditional love, yeah.
But I had friends that decided to believe in me, and I just want to be that for other people. Let me believe in you until you get there.
Because we know it's possible,
yeah.
Right? It's no matter like literally how far down the scale you have gone, right? Or like whatever the case may be, no matter how down bad you think you are, there's still resources, right? Whether it's insurance, no insurance, it doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter. There's a way.
And that's like my whole thing, right? It's like, I don't care if you have the means to get help, if you don't have the means to get help, if you have a dollar to your name it does not matter.
Reach
right?
out.
Reach
There's a
out.
way.
Like, we will find you the resource. Absolutely. The issue is that if they're anything like me, they're like, wow, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I hear you, but like, this is where this is where we need to, like, literally like dig down deep, right? And be like, okay, you're going to like try to recreate your life. If you want to, I'll find it for you. But like, that's the truth of the matter, is that like, I'm like, okay, I want help, but not like that help.
Yeah. I love that. Then I want help, but then I'm going to dictate how I get help.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like,
how
okay,
about you just listen?
Yeah. What are the chances that like the same head that got you here
is making the right choices
is a
out?
different head than telling you that you're not going to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if people wanted to reach out to you, you'll be tagged in all this stuff.
Please reach out.
Because I don't know your Instagram handle. I would botch it. I know it's like S Sabato.
Sarah Sabato. I think that's what it is, but
we'll tag it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say to anybody that might be listening?
Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Thank you for coming out. And again, second plug now, because this is the one I always put in. Like, comment, subscribe, at Pain W Purpose on Instagram, Pain with a Purpose podcast, and Apple and Spotify Pain with a Purpose podcast, on all streaming platforms. Smash that like button, whatever you guys are talking about. But yeah, with that, we'll see you guys next week.